Additional Secretary Cole, who are going to be part of this session as a representation from the Government of India. Just to apprise you that Mr. M. Nagaraju is going to be slightly delayed. He's in a meeting with the minister. So we're expecting him to be joining us in the course of the session. But as soon as Shri Alok Kumarji is here, we are going to be good to be starting with the session. Just a request to the speakers, in the interest of time, the time which has been allocated to you for your presentations or for your talk, you're requested to kindly confine it in that time so that there is no spillover. It's a half day today, and the delay here is going to be definitely having a cascading effect and a delayed lunch and then the conclusion of this day too. As I foresee also, there's a little delay in starting with the inaugural session. So just a request, if you can be in time for our presentations. Thank you. And yes, just once again a request, having your mobile phones on the silent mode or on the meeting mode, please. Thank you. Yeah, if you can just guide me, is the voice clear at the end? I feel there's a slight echo. Yeah, there is. If I can just request people at the console, if you can just manage that. थोड़ा सा echo आ रहा है, आप इसे please ठीक कर दें. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome our distinguished guest speakers of the session, Shri Alok Kumarji, former Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of India. Good greetings to Shri Weber Pokhrana, Senior Lead Sustainability, AMNS India, Shri Akhil Agarwal, the Senior Director, Power Management and Renewable Energy, ST Telemedia Global Data Centers, Shri Sunil Duggal, Chairman Strategy and Policy Vedanta Limited, inviting Mr. Prashant Chaubey, the President of Ada Energy, Shri Kush, the Chief Executive Officer, SR Power, Shri Ganesh Srinivasan, the Co-Chair of FICCI Power Committee, and we have our Secretary General FICCI, Shri Shailesh Kumar Pathakji, gracing the days. Welcome to all. And welcome to all present in this August gathering also to the second day of India Energy Transition Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, this day stands dedicated to understanding the approach, the strategies which the industries are adopting to accelerate the pace of energy transition, working closely with the government and the other stakeholders and delivering to the national goals and the government's vision. So in this day, we are going to be looking into this wide range of topics: renewable energy adoption, energy efficiency, electrification, integration of new technologies into our energy systems, building greater partnerships and collaborations. And then we're also going to be examining some of the challenges and the opportunities which are there as we embark on this transformative journey. So at the very onset, we thank Shri Alok Kumarji, the former Secretary Power, for taking out time and gracing the occasion. And on behalf of all present here, I would like to request the Secretary General FICCI, Shri Shailesh Kumar Pathakji, to kindly present the green certificate to Alok Kumarji. Many thanks once again to Alok Kumarji. Ladies and gentlemen, you might be aware that he's a man behind India's clean energy transition, which we are seeing with very conducive and enabling policies. In fact, he instilled a revolution, and we are on this path which has been shown by him. At the onset, I request Secretary General FICCI, Shri Shailesh Kumar Pathakji, for his welcome remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, would like to mention here that he is one of the few Indians who has worked across government, business and academia. He had been the CEO and the managing director of large companies in the private sector.
We'll cut the introduction. We'll get to the reason why all of you are here. And all of us are eminently Googleable on the panel. So may I request the Master of Ceremonies not to go into lengthy introductions? It is what we say, not who we are, right? Yes or no? Yeah, all right. So it's actually, our great pleasure as Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry to welcome all of you. Just yesterday, please, there are seats, otherwise you come and younger and smarter people sit in front, come. Just yesterday, we had this inaugural of the Energy Transition Summit, and we were ourselves happy to see the kind of response as compared to last year. And the packed room, in a sense, for all of us in this panel, is a tribute to all the good work that is happening both from industry and particularly government to enable energy transition in India. We had the inaugural session with Minister R.K. Singh yesterday. And he, of course, how many people attended that inaugural speech by R.K. Singh? Excellent, excellent. So he made a few points. But just before that, 30-second commercial on Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. How many of you know Gandhiji's connection with FICCI? Mahatma Gandhi. How many people know? All right. So Mahatma Gandhi, not more than 4 people know. Imagine, FICCI is doing a terrible job at marketing itself. Mahatma Gandhi came for the 4th annual general meeting of FICCI in 1931. And in 1931, the speech is up there on our website. And in 1931, he said that I firmly believe that commercial prosperity and strict honesty go together. So many years ago, Mahatma Gandhi was talking about ESG, And with that legacy, FICCI will carry on in the future. So 30 seconds over, right? And at the risk of repetition, what did R.K. Singh say? Minister R.K. Singh said that India has 17% of the world's population and 4% of the world's emission. He said that the only way to look at global benchmarks is to look at per capita emissions, right? And here, aside, how many of you have used either air conditioning or heating in your homes? Please raise your hands. Right. The secret is the Indians don't heat their entire home. They don't air condition their entire home. They only heat or air condition the room they are in. Yes or no? The way to reduce global warming is for Europeans and Americans to only heat the room that they are in and only cool the room that they are in. Why do you have to heat your entire home? And if I look at any number of global warming or emissions, a large part is heating of homes. So per capita emissions and per capita hypocrisy goes together, right? With that background, and R.K. Singh also said that we should look at all fossil fuel and not just coal, right? So gas is fossil fuel. And R.K. Singh very confidently said that India needs millions of tons of steel, millions of tons of cement, and we cannot keep Indians in a lower quality of living. So we will, unless we have the technology to store renewable energy, we will continue using coal. And I think from an Indian perspective, Indian industry would hate to see poor, people being kept poor just because we have to, comply to some, anyway, right. He also said that after the Ukraine supply chain disruption, all nice sounding words have been jettisoned and people have come down to what works for those countries. We as Indians should do what works for India. But here are some success stories. I was looking at 2,440% increase in solar power generation in India in the last, 7, 8 years, 9 years? 240x is the increase in solar power generation. Just a little story here. We were at Kurseong for a leadership retreat last week. And as you know, Kurseong is in this area where Nepal is on one side and West Bengal is on the other side. And I don't know, is anyone from EESL or Bureau of Energy Efficiency here? No? The outstanding success of India was driven home to me when the driver told me that, sir, we can clearly make out where the India border ends and where the Bangladesh border begins. I said, how? He said, on the Indian side, we have LED bulbs and everything is, bright and white. On the other side, we have these yellow, small little lattus, the bulbs. We Indians don't realize that this is such a huge energy saving that on the border of Bangladesh and India, we can clearly make out how India has changed. And those of you in the panel know that this has happened only in the last 7, 8 years. The kind of saving in power that we have achieved because of LED bulbs is a success story that I hope some of you will talk about. We've had several sessions over the last 2 days, and this is an excellent knowledge paper that Deloitte has come out with. I strongly recommend, in case you can download it from the FICCI website, you'll save some paper, yeah, instead of asking for a hard copy. And it's freely available for anyone who is registered for our conference. Lastly, we are talking about grid decarbonization, industrial decarbonization, and transport decarbonization. And in terms of grid and transport, I just wanted to leave a number with you that according to Morgan Stanley, India's GDP is going to increase from $3.2 trillion US to 7.9 in 7 years. So that's 3.2 to 7.9 in less than 7 years. Most of us in this room have never seen this kind of explosive growth. And with all due respect, this growth is not going to come from the government. This growth is going to come from the private sector people in this room. Right? The challenge for all of us is to how to achieve this growth without leaving a mess for our children and grandchildren. And those people who are younger than 30, I hope that when you are my age, which is very old, you see a cleaner and greener India. This growth is going to come not because of anything else except urbanization and industry. So the Indians in this room, the city that you were born in, today it is double the population of what you were born in. Yes or no? It's double the size, it's double the population. The fun fact is, in another 15-20 years, it will be double its current size and double its current population. That is where our growth is going to come from. How do we make urbanization more just transition oriented? Yeah? And maybe that's the fourth aspect that I'd like to urge Deloitte and our own team. We've talked about grid, we've talked about industrial, and we've talked about transport. We should also talk about urban transition, because we all know that urbanization in India is going to boom like this, right? And I hope that 5 years later, everybody comes to this conference by metro and not by private car. Yeah. So in terms of industrial, steel, cement, aluminum, fertilizer and chemical, I have much more knowledgeable colleagues in the dais waiting to address you. But once again, going back to what R.K. Singh said, Indian steel and Indian cement is needed for India's development. How can you decarbonize that is the question. And one of the richest Indians in the world, who has extensive steel operations across the world, told the president of FICCI and me that if my steel produced with green hydrogen is $4 more expensive, nobody is going to buy my steel. So we are here as FICCI representing private industry, and the business opportunity is how to make that $4 into 10 cents, right? So that's all I'll say for now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone and giving us a lot of food for thought and contemplation as we take these discussions forward. So we first invite the renewable energy industry address by the renewable energy developers, and would like to request Shri Kush, who's the Chief Executive Officer of SR Power. A short introduction of his. Under his leadership, SR Power is committed towards delivering long-term sustainable growth, monetizing its carbon-heavy investments and reinvesting in creating a balance sheet around renewable energy and future-centric businesses. Over to you, sir.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my proud privilege to be here addressing this August gathering. Yesterday was a very elaborate session of how India is going to transition into renewable energy, eminent speakers speaking about statistical growth with respect to solar, wind, and other aspects. Today, in these 5 minutes, I'd like to focus mostly on the key area of renewable energy which we need today is round-the-clock renewable energy. I'll straight away come to the subject. Now, if we talk of round-the-clock renewable energy, a sustained, reliable, consistent flow of power, we know it's not going to come solely through solar, solely through wind, solely through hydro. It will be a mix, and we know for sure that banking and wheeling in our grid system will not be possible. Given that scenario, the only thing we need to focus today is what technology suits us. If you recall, when we did the Pokhran test and we were declared outcasts in the world, left stranded, we adapted. We adapted, we came back with a new nuclear technology, and we showed the world. Out of the many things we've learned from Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi is, out of the many things, a few things which really matter to us today is how strong we are, how strongly we adapt, how strongly and how effectively we harness our relationships across the world, and how do we survive based on Darwin's theory, survival of the fittest. Technology is the key today. I'll just brief you about the one thing we need today most is a small modular nuclear reactor. That is the heart of round-the-clock renewable energy, reliable, consistent, affordable. Now, there are various technologies around. Somebody may advise a light water reactor which runs on pressure. But to have a light water reactor of a 300 megawatt capacity, you would be dependent on enriched uranium on a country who would dictate terms, who would put your reactor on surveillance, and you won't be free to operate. The latest technology on a small modular reactor is the thorium-based breeder reactor, developed in Copenhagen by Copenhagen Atomics. They are doing great. It's a fantastic technology. You have a thorium salt encompass and a thorium salt flowing as a coolant, as a mediator coolant, as a primary coolant. The fission reaction does not involve any hazardous condition. There is no uranium-235, which is dangerous, and you produce power at the minimum price. Just to go by basic statistics, 1 kg of thorium can give you 23 million kilowatt of power, whereas 1 kg of coal can give you 7 kilowatt, 1 kg of gas can give you 13 kilowatt. One ball of thorium is only priced at $100, and it can electrify your house for 3 generations to come. That is the power of thorium. And in India, if you go to Kerala, you're walking on thorium. So what we need to be today is self-sufficient, self-dependent, and then exporting energy across the world. Because the day we get round-the-clock, affordable, cheap renewable power, you will be generating cheapest hydrogen in the world. You will be making cheapest ammonia in the world. You will be making cheapest e-methanol in the world. And you will be exporting and you'll be rocking in the world market. I just give you an example. What we as private entrepreneurs, as private developers, we want to request the government to frame a policy which will support us to get the best technology which we need to become self-sufficient. A country like Indonesia, it is horrible on solar irradiation. It is horrible on wind speed. But they wanted to go renewable. They wanted to go round-the-clock renewable. Indonesian government has signed a JV with Copenhagen Atomics. They are setting up 10 fast breeder thorium small modular reactors of 300 megawatt each. The ultimate cost of electricity, to tell you gentlemen, you'll be surprised, will be between 3 to 4 rupees, round-the-clock renewable power. That's the call of the day. That's the call of the century. We need to adapt. We need to survive. We need to find the right technology. And for round the clock, this is the right technology. Then only we can produce hydrogen. And the best part of this whole renewable thing is what value we add downstream. Tomorrow, if I produce a very cheap cost of, I can get very cheap cost of green hydrogen. I can import used cooking oil. I can produce HVO. I can produce SAF. I can extract carbon dioxide, produce e-methanol. I can do anything, and all at a very affordable price, and which sells in the world market today like gold. So our request, sir, to eminent government authorities sitting here is to promote the whole concept of getting the exact technology which we need as India. I won't go to get enriched uranium. No, I don't need it. I need a technology which will help me use my thorium. We are the richest in thorium reserve in the world. And we have a technology in the world right now. So we get that technology and then we harness it ourselves. We have thorium fast breeder reactors in Kalpakkam, in BRC. We have been working on it for the last 30 years. And we have done miracles as far as fast breeder reactors are concerned. So as preached by our Honorable Prime Minister, we need to strengthen ourselves in-house and then become the exporters of energy in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your submissions and recommendations on becoming self-reliant in producing clean green. I request now our next MP speaker, Shri Prashant Chaubey, the President of Avada Energy, and as the Head Business Development and HR, he's your friend. Yes, open access business, government relations policy.
Good morning, everyone. Sri Pathak ji, Sri Alok Kumar ji, my industry friends. First of all, 30 minutes of commercial time. He has given me a lead on, so I represent Avada here. We are one of our largest IPP, Send to Molecule company. Important because we are upstream setting up electrolyzer, solar module manufacturing. We are anyhow one of the largest IPP, so have been through the entire chain of renewable development, and also now into downstream part where we are setting up green hydrogen, green ammonia, and other green derivative projects. That's how we almost have about 4 gigawatt of installed capacity and 2.5 gigawatt in the pipeline and construction. That's how we make such an important player in this energy transition. As Pathak ji rightly said, the story of LED, and that has really changed. 10 years ago, LED was a luxury actually. And today actually LED is so affordable that the incandescent bulb, those lattus have become actually a luxury item, right? So people will, in a couple of years, you'll have to really go to a museum to find out incandescent lattu bulb, which you need to demonstrate and you need to put on yourself to show that once upon a time that has to be something which was driving the India's energy transition journey. I think India has done phenomenally well in India energy transition. One is that a very bold statement which has come from a very bold leadership, and I'm really proud to say that part, because setting up those kind of a humongous vision is something unheard of. 2008-9, 2010, when we started a solar journey, 10 megawatt, 20 megawatt, 50 megawatt kind of a solar project was something like very, very gigantic kind of a project. We did 150 megawatt of a single largest project 2013-14 in Neemuch MP. Honorable Prime Minister came to inaugurate the project, and that time he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, election year, and he went on to become the PM same year. And he addressed a public gathering outside our project where he announced the concept of 7 Rath, the 7 elements which are going to fuel the India's transition journey, and 100 gigawatt kind of a solar which stunned everyone. I mean, how can anybody talk about 100 gigawatt of a solar? And we are almost like 70 gigawatt solar touching right now. And kind of a bold NDCs, which is given through a Panchamrit, right? And the world is really stunned at looking at that kind of a thing. We are almost like completing our NDCs now. And we are today guiding the world through Article 3, 6.2 of Paris Agreement, that here we have just completed our NDCs, on the verge of completing our NDCs. We have so much of a resources. Now, other countries who have much far beyond their NDCs commitment, India need at this point of a time technology and capital. See, we have almost done our NDCs commitment. Other countries who have to meet their NDCs, they can really invest and can take through the transfer of ITMOs, internationally transferred monetary outcome. And I think that is something which is really driving the thing. As far as ecosystem is concerned, federal government has really shown the way, union government has really shown the way. Electricity being a concurrent list of the subject will see own issues which we face in a number of states. There is no doubt. Many of my corporate customers and clientele who is present here will also feel the same way. There are a lot of still challenges at a states level in terms of a vision which has been thought through and really is implementation at the ground. So that's another thing. 3-4 important trends which are happening is and to see this entire energy transition and decarbonization happening through industry. One is a very bold vision coming from the union government where open access is actually right now becoming something where we really say it has become open now. I think open access, which was introduced in 2003, remained actually a closed access for about a couple of years ago, right? It was very difficult to get any open access approval anywhere else. But last 7 to 8 years has really shown the way in terms of open access happening. Green energy open access rules have been a visionary thing, which has really granted a lot of push in terms of industries opting for a decarbonization. G20 has just happened, we have seen. It almost contribute to about 80% of a global industrial output, these 20 countries, but also are responsible for about 75% of the emissions. And it's actually a clarion call for the industry. So green energy open access is a very good tool in terms of industries opting for a decarbonization and being a part of a transition journey. A lot of other incentives are there. One important is ISTS waiver, interstate transmission charges waiver, which comes really handy. So it's any industry located anywhere in the country, it does not really have to depend on the ecosystem of that state for the supply of renewable power. Generation has already been delicensed, right? Anybody can opt for a power. We are setting up huge capacity in Rajasthan, and if you are in Tripura, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, anywhere you want a power, we can supply using ISTS periphery because transmission charges are waiver till 2025. That's all a phenomenal thing. India has a national grid, and national grid itself works like a great absorber. It's a great storage which is already there, right? Next important transition which is happening in the part of green hydrogen and green ammonia will see India really occupying. There have been a lot of things which have happened, right? Everybody talks about US Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, right? And everybody talks about $3 subsidy, but nobody really thinks about the $3 is for certain level of emissions, which is really very, very difficult to achieve, 0.5. In terms of benchmarked emission, which is about 2 kg equivalent to a CO2 per kg of a hydrogen, the American subsidy will work out to be close to $1 only, right? And the government of India has given about ₹50 or so per kg. And we are, in terms of 2 kg emission, right? And we are quite clear to that. So I think the kind of a bold, we know that $2 or $3 billion, 19,000 crore of a PLI, which has come as a part of a national hydrogen mission. A lot of people are saying that it's not sufficient. But in terms of the actual emission linked or emission mapped subsidy is really good one. A lot of other things which have come, driving cost of a renewable power is a very cheap power in India, and the cost of renewable in entire hydrogen value chain, as we see, right? One is a renewable power, second is electrolyzer, and third is actually green ammonia. Ammonia is produced for a while, hydrogen is produced for a while. There is no rocket science in that, but the cost of electrolyzer, where we need to really become a self-reliant. We have seen in our solar journey, right? The reliance on China has become a catastrophic. And I think for hydrogen vision, the vision to be a center of it, creating hydrogen hubs, and really lead the world right from day one in terms of your ability to export. Europe has a huge ambition. They want to import about 10 million tons of hydrogen, right? And it's a phenomenal opportunity for India. Similarly, the Middle East will also go for it. Are we ready for it? I mean, that's something which is really, really important for us. And third important thing which is really going to change the way the global trade flows will happen is CBAM. And those who do not know, it's a carbon border adjustment mechanism. It's a tax, carbon tax, which has been introduced now in Europe. It's for next 3 years, starting this 1st October. For next 3 years, it is mandatory to report your embedded emissions. So any export happening from, let's say, India, for our perspective, any steel, anything which is going to Europe now, will have to report the emissions. And after 2026, when the time for the allowances are over, you will have to pay for it. Benchmark to the European ETS, it's about €80 per kg equivalent of a carbon dioxide. So it's a clarion call for a steel. Major 5 industries today account for almost 80% of emission, right? Steel, oil, refineries, chemicals. And I think it's a clarion call for all those industry. India has a tremendous good ecosystem now, plethora of renewable capacity, a national grid, a government which is committed to. You look at Honorable Minister, I've been fortunate enough to hear a lot of his speeches. And the bold way he speaks that if any state is not granting you open access, let me know. It's 15 days time you'll get the open access if you really want to set up. For captive customers, there is no limit now. Green energy open access rules, they have really lowered the capacity in terms of any industry opting for open access from 1 megawatt to 100 kilowatt level. Anyway, at that level, number of industry, even your requirement is not 100 kilowatt, you can club it, you can just bundle it and opt for open access. This is a phenomenal opportunity for India, for industries to be part of this journey. And a developer like us who are there to support it in terms of any kind of a solution needed for all of you. Thank you very much. I think I have also got a clarion call for this. Thank you so much. It's a phenomenal opportunity, a very conducive policy and ecosystem, and it's a good way ahead for the India. Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. With my apologies, just in the interest of time. Now, moving from the developers inviting the user's perspective, I request Shri Sunil Duggalji, the Chairman Strategy and Policy, Vedanta Limited. He has more than 37 years of experience, almost 20 plus years in the leadership positions. We seek his views and perspective.
Morning, everyone. Morning, my friend sitting on the dais. Very happy to be here. And these days, every other week, such type of conferences keep happening every now and then, and people keep deliberating as to what is our future. And there is a race going on between different geographies of the world, within India, between different companies. And it makes us, very satisfied that this topic is now being given a highest importance. And a lot of innovation is taking place. We all are hearing now the helium-3 being brought from moon. And I was reading that 25 ton of helium could be enough to feed the entire United States for 1 year. So a lot of data is emerging. I was thinking in my mind as to what should I speak today, but I try to collate some data to make the thinking even, take a different direction from what generally we have been discussing. So I have brought some data which I will present to you. So all of you know that the time from COP26, the awareness amongst the world community has risen, and in which the Prime Minister of India also said that there are 5 key pole stars through which we want to drive our renewable journey. One, he said, of course, you may all be aware that we want to set up a 500 gigawatt of renewable capacity by 2030. And he also said that 50% of the energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030. Apart from that, there were 3 other statements which are also given. Where we are today, 186 megawatt of the non-fossil fuel-based energy capacity is set up till now. Today, renewable energy contributes about 23% of the electricity generation, including hydro. Although we have reached here, but looking at the commitment we have made by 2030, there is a long way to go, and we all are satisfied that there is a huge progress which is happening on this. But we also be mindful that in the last 3 years, if we look at how the energy requirement is growing in India, our energy requirement is growing at a faster pace compared to the GDP growth. So we all will have to be mindful. But The satisfying thing is that last year, almost the entire new energy requirement was met through the renewable sources. Around 90 to 93% of that was met through the renewable sources. Commercial and industrial consumers are the big segment of energy consumers, which is around 42% of the total electricity generated in India. Steel industry contributes 25%, aluminium contributes 20% of the electricity consumption in India. So that means you can understand out of the total industry, around 45% of the total consumption is done by these two sectors only. And the kind of work they have to do, of course, I'm from Vedanta, and we are also mindful that what we need to do, because the energy intensity in aluminium is very, very high. Most of the electricity consumption in industry comes from the conventional fuel. The transition which has happened, unfortunately, so much of transition has not happened in the industry as it should have happened. The transition in the other consumption areas have happened at a much faster pace. Corporate renewable capacity is estimated to have reached just around 26 gigawatt by the end of 2022. Direct renewable procurement accounts for only 7% of the total consumption. My friend who has just spoken before me, he also mentioned that CBAM tax which is being imposed by Europe is the big impediment, and this will throw a very big challenge to the Indian industry. And if I look at data, there is an analysis which has been done which says that the increase in the cost of delivered steel to European Union from India could rise by 56%. So the competitiveness of the Indian industry is also a challenge. Of course, we have done a lot. We also have to be mindful that how it can impact us to remain a global player and how to compete with the world. Then I think the other area which is very important is the role of the critical minerals. A lot has been done by the government, but if you look at how the demand for the critical minerals, including lithium, copper, nickel, cadmium, cobalt, has gone up in the last 3 years. The world over the demand has tripled. And now it is also being estimated that in the current plan, at least the demand is going to triple by 2030. So that means from a base of 2020 to 2030, there could be a rise of 6 times of the demand. And during this time, no new mineral mine across the world has come. But the other important factor also for us to consider is that this is a very geographical concentration of the mineral in the world. There are 3 countries in the world which actually contain 75% of the global output of lithium, cobalt, and rare earth. That means you must have also heard that last few months, I think 2-3 months back, China imposed a ban on export of gallium and germanium to US, and this metal is used for production of the semiconductor, and they said that we will not allow these minerals to be exported to US. So the kind of war, it may not be the physical war which will go on in future, but there will be war of the technology, the semiconductor, the minerals, critical mineral, renewable power, and many things which could throw a challenge. So India has to be literally mindful about what is the role of the critical mineral for a country like us, where we want to be, go the renewable path, and the kind of role which the EV has to play, I think we all know. So in this, I am being reminded that my time is over, but I'll just mention 2-3 points here. One is we are focusing on the pump storage. There's a lot of research which is going on in the CSP, concentrated solar plant, where the existing plants could also be used, the thermal plants could also be used for running the turbine through the steam produced through the CSPs. There is a lot of other research which is going on. Like I mentioned in the beginning, that in the cement production, there is a research which I was reading a paper that there is a research going on that in future you may not have to burn the lime in the lime kiln at a 1500 degrees centigrade. There is some chemical reaction which are being tested. So a lot of disruption is going to happen in this world. And in India, we also will have to do a lot of R&D and focus on, especially the critical sectors and the critical research on which we will have to stay ahead of the curve. Of course, now the Chandrayaan has landed at Moon. The challenge lies in front of us. There is a competition going on in the world that who will bring the helium first on the earth. And as I told you that the 25 tons of helium could be enough to, feed the entire power requirement of US. And let me also tell you that 1 million ton of helium could be enough to feed 10,000 years of the power requirement to this world. So the kind of opportunities, impediments, challenges, and R&D which lies in front of us, it keeps us very, very excited, and the role of all of us we will have to play in the time to come. It will be watched by this world very, very, cautiously. And thanks for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for doing this SWOT analysis of the sector. And now requesting our next eminent speaker, Shri Akhil Agarwal, the Senior Director, Power Management and Renewable Energy, ST Telemedia Global Data Centers.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Vicky for inviting me. So we have learned a lot of mindful things from my earlier speaker, like use of a small nuclear reactor for the use of the round-the-clock power. We have learned about the use of helium and how a 25 ton of helium can be used for the entire US. Now I will bring you all to the different world. I belong to a data center industry, and my company name is Singapore Technology Telemedia Global Data Center. We are part of the Government of Singapore Finance Department called Temasek Holdings, which is a sovereign wealth fund, and my company is the down the line subsidiary in India from Temasek Holdings. We are largest data center operator in India, and we are having presently 22 operating data center in 10 states in Is any one of you can tell how much power being consumed by data center globally? Presently, 2% of the global energy is being consumed by data centers, which is equivalent to the entire aviation industry. And if you will compare how much data centers presently in India compared to the total Europe, so we are just 10th. And if you will compare the total internet user, 70 crore internet user are there in Europe, and equivalent 70 crore internet user are in India. But as compared to Europe, our data center capacity is just 1/10. So we are presently at 800 megawatt IT capacity, which is equivalent to 1500 megawatt of round-the-clock power we are consuming in Indian data center. Compared to Indian data center, presently Europe data center IT capacity is 9,000 megawatt for the similar internet user. So we can understand how much potential there is in India for increase of the data centers, and thanks to the government of India for bringing the data center protection bill. So this is a very good step of central government. And with that, I will also tell you what was the emerging factor of data center in India. So in India, data center has emerged at two places initially because of the cable landing center. Those were the Chennai and the Mumbai of the world, because these two places were connected through submarine cables to the Singapore, Hong Kong, and on the other side Dubai and the Gulf countries. So Mumbai and Chennai was the emerging data center hub initially 10 to 15 years back. And after that, when all the tech giants came in India, like Microsoft of the world, Google of the world, and Amazon of the world. They have developed India into different availability zone. And presently, we are having 5 to 6 availability zone, which is considered very big data center hub in India, including Mumbai, Chennai. We are having Hyderabad, Pune. Noida has emerged due to Chief Minister Mr. Yogi's data center policy, which was very vibrant data center policy, which has brought in 20,000 crore investment in UP, standalone only in data center. So this is, we can say, data is the next oil. Having said that, I will come to my company's consumption. Presently, we consume 220 megawatt IT capacity, which is equivalent to around 400 megawatt round the clock power. And when we speak about the round the clock power of 400 megawatt, it is equivalent to almost 2000 megawatt of renewable equivalent. And out of 2000 megawatt renewable equivalent, presently 40% of our need is being met from the renewable energy. And my total capacity is going to become 3 times in next 4 years. And if you will club all the capacities which is under execution right now in India, in next 5 years, the 800 megawatt IT capacity will cross 6,000 megawatt. So you can understand a 40,000 to 50,000 megawatt round the clock power is being emerging for the RE developers to tie up, because these data center players are being not consuming power for themselves. Data center player has to develop these data center to keep the server of all the Google kind of player who are into the cloud. So cloud player is having their own sustainability commitment. They are having net zero target, and most of them are already meeting the 100% their net zero target. So from the day one of their contracting with our kind of player, they keep the condition that you have to provide all the renewable energy from the day one 100%. So getting day one 100% is not possible. So we start our journey with getting the green tariff from the DISCOM from the day one. And after 1 year or 2 years, when there is certain demand potential, we see that this much will be the load in next 2 to 3 years. Then we used to tie up our friends like Mr. Prashant of Avada of the world, or Tata Power of the world, or Semcorp of the world, like that. Having said that, we consumer feel that central government is doing very good work, like Mr. Prashant has told that green open access policy, interstate transmission charges waiver, but power being a concurrent subject, we still feel so much pinch at the state level when we go and starting getting the open access dialogues with our RE partner. Like still in Gujarat, they are expecting 100% equity to be infused for the captive against the captive regulation of 26%. Tamil Nadu do not allow ISTS procurement for renewable energy. Telangana minister's statement 2 days back, you have already heard, they have very clearly told don't push for the green open access. And then there are 2 utility like BEST of the world in Mumbai and NDMG of the world in Delhi who do not provide open access. West Bengal do not have any clear-cut policy for the open access. Maharashtra always restrict their renewable open access because of the contract demand. Except Gujarat, none of the state is having wind solar hybrid policy. So why other state is not coming for this? So this is the tussle between the state government and the central government. So a lot of politics is involved. So we have to sit together and we have to keep politics away if we want to grab the opportunity of having more data center in India, and we want to defeat the Europe data center capacity in India. Lot of potential is there, my friends. Come forward together and do the policy advocacy at the state level to have conducive atmosphere to have the renewable energy open access in place. Thank you.
So that's the voice of the user industry highlighting certain challenges. And now I request Shri Weber Pokrana, the Senior Lead Sustainability at ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and good morning to the dais, people of the dais, and my dear friends. Actually, I'm the last one, so my job is easy. I don't have too much to say, but in a very quick conclusion. See, when we talk about the steel industry, I am here to represent the steel industry. So many people who are talking about steel industry, I guess they know quite a lot. But it's not, the situation is not as bad as it sounds, you know. steel industry, while it is energy and emission intensive, but it has got the other brighter side. It is infinitely recyclable. The only challenge we have is we have not reached the per capita consumption, or we have not been able to go up to the level where we do not need virgin raw material. But once we go up to that level, we will not need anything, and it will keep on recycling itself. Unlike any other material, steel has the highest recycling potential. So the situation is not that bad. Yes, but we have to reach to that level, we will need a lot of enablers. Like currently, steel industry, most of the production is from the blast furnace BF route, and it is majorly coal intensive. And there have been, unfortunately, not too many technological developments so far in the last 40 years to decrease the emission intensity of this route. But since the call is imminent, people are getting more and more conscious about the environment, sustainability. We are hopeful that it will come down significantly in the near future. And in case there are other alternative routes available like DRI-EAF, but those are like natural gas based, and although they have got a better accessibility of green hydrogen, but those are like even hydrogen is not right now available in abundance, and the natural gas is quite costly. So it all comes down to three aspects: affordability, security, and sustainability. So all these things have to work together. We cannot compromise one over another. So this is a trilemma which we are in, and which we have to overcome over the next few years. The government is having a very crucial role. They are bringing in new policies every, I would say every month to sustain the industry, and we should applaud them. But at the same time, more work needs to be done. If I come down to the specifics, we can say like for the steel industry, it would be renewables, green hydrogen, which are the drivers for decarbonization. But at the same time, although I don't see too many people talking about the carbon capture, but this is also a reality which we have to face. In the steel industry, it cannot go 100% renewables or green hydrogen. It's not possible, because steel by itself is an alloy and it is made of carbon, and so the carbon needs to come from something, either from the fossil fuels or from the biogas or biomass, whatever, but it cannot be 100% renewables. So in the longer term, the carbon capture, utilization and storage would also need to be strengthened. We have not scratched the surface, even the surface in India, but we have to go deep, and we have to find out sustainable solutions, scalable solutions, and economical solutions. I'll stop here. I don't think there is too much to say more on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from three user industries to the renewable energy developers. We know about the Indian government's goals and the vision the government has. And now we invite more experiential views and guidance of former Secretary Power. I request Shri Alok Kumar ji for his address.
Good morning to all. My co-panelists, the delegates and participants here. It's a matter of pleasure for me to come here and speak, and I must thank the FICCI for this opportunity, and I also am very happy that FICCI is organizing this second edition of this annual summit on India Energy Transition. Friends, a lot of things have been said, I think yesterday and today also. So what I'm going to present to my perspective will have a lot of overlap, because so much of to talk about energy transition, it can't be exclusive and something. But I will present the perspective based on my understanding and my knowledge and whatever I have seen in the government. Before I begin, let me take some credit from this data center policy of UP, It was notified in January 21 when I moved to Government of India, and I'm very happy to see the good effects of data center policy. Say, energy transition is now a reality and it's a need, because whatever we may say for India's per capita emissions, our difficulties, challenges, globally we all have agreed to Paris Agreement that it is a very major problem for the human race. So we have to find solutions collectively and we can't run away from it. And fighting climate change is largely energy transition, because 3/4 of the greenhouse gas emissions, they come from energy and related sectors. So this is going to be a big challenge. Let me tell about India's position and so-called national circumstances. I will encourage all of you to read one document which is called Long-Term Low Emission Development Strategy, which was submitted by Ministry of Environment and Forest to UNFCCC in 2022. Because we may have very diverse views, very radical views, very pessimistic views, but that is the well considered official stand of Government of India, which is a collective, say, wisdom and what we intend to do. It recognizes that India is not responsible for climate change so far, because we have not added much of historical emissions, but India is one which will get most affected. India is one of those countries most affected by climate change, because we are highly vulnerable by our dependence on our rivers, our Himalaya system, coastlines, and we have a diverse and we have a lot of drought prone areas, and there are weather changes, we will get affected. So India is a country which is not much responsible, but which will get impacted in a big way by climate change. In these circumstances, we have the national goal of becoming a developed country by 2047. You see these three sentences: we are not responsible, we are getting impacted, and we want to develop very fast, which is a legitimate aspiration. If we cannot become developed countries even after 100 years of independence, when we will be? This is our legitimate aspiration. So we have to steer that we continue taking global leadership in climate change, but we also take care of our national circumstances, and we develop for the benefit of 1/6 of humanity. We can't remain poor even after 100 years of independence. Let me tell you, there is this document which I refer to, the long-term LEDS, the low emission trend. It speaks of the India's rightful entitlement to the carbon budget. If you go to document, it makes a case that India has sufficient time legitimately available to it to achieve net zero by 2070. There may be some people in the room who will wish to India to prepone it 2050. There are a lot of documents floating around, but rightfully, legitimately, India has this time available to it. My view is that India needs to accelerate energy transition, not just from the aspect of the controlling the greenhouse gas emissions, but from the imperatives of energy security and reducing the import dependence. If you go to the energy scenario which have been floated by Niti Aayog, even that shows a very high level of import dependence for India for oil, for gas, and for coking coal. So where are we going? So we need to sit together, apply our best mind and innovation R&D to see that we accelerate India's energy transition for the sake of our energy security. what is happening in with Russia-Ukraine conflict, somebody was talking about China restricting technology, that might happen to India also one day. Where shall we stand for our developed country status and for our independence? So there are, in my view, there are two big challenges which India has to keep in mind while we take forward our energy transition. First is the affordability. India's household spend almost double, twice in terms of percentage of its income as the US household spend on energy. We are a poor country. Our households are having low income. No government, I was listening to some difficulties of open access. I was a driver of green open access when I was in Government of India, but I know you will always face resistance and backlash from states because there is an issue of rising energy prices for low income households, which are in huge number in India. We will have to find a solution when we are able to keep this affordability within tolerable limit, because states also don't have infinite funds to subsidize the electricity tariffs, and neither in a democracy they can allow the electricity tariffs to rise beyond a point. Affordability is one big issue which India will have to keep in mind. Second is your import dependence, not only for oil, gas, coal, but also for critical minerals, for batteries, for electrolyzers, for solar modules. We cannot have an energy transition in which our jobs go to China. To be very blunt, no democracy will be able to face it. So India will have to take care of energy transition for its security, keeping in mind one, affordability, and second, local manufacturing of the critical inputs for the new technologies like modules and electrolyzer. This is my perspective, and whatever it takes to technological innovation, life mission, low cost funds, all will have to see. Let me give you some statistics before I turn to the decarbonization in the industries, which is the topic for this session. Energy growth, we will have 2.1 times from 22 to 2047. So our GDP will grow at 7% per annum, but our energy will grow something around 2.7% at CAGR. So India has decoupled quite significantly its economic growth from energy intensity and emission intensity. That is a fact, but still it will grow, and it is the highest energy growth in the world which India will see, because we are a big country and we are to develop. The industrial sector, because we are promoting Make in India through PLI, we have to build our cities which will require cement and steel. We have to build our ports, roads, airports which will require these materials, and we have to also create green jobs. We have to grow, because only manufacturing can give jobs which we have to give to the people who are in agriculture today. So the share of industry in GDP will increase from 27.2% to 34.5% in the next 25 years. And industry is highly energy intensive and emission intensive, mind. The energy consumption in industrial sector presently is around 43%. It will go to 51%, because other sectors are decarbonizing. Like electricity sector is decarbonizing very rapidly, but industry is not able to. There are structural problems, there are affordability problems. And I quote some statistics from the IEA. In 2019, the emissions from industry in India were 32%, which will become 55% in 2040, not 47, 2040. So industry is the elephant in the room, which we require to look at for reducing our emission intensity. I know when we look this side, affordability, this side, energy security, and that side CBM. So life is quite challenging and difficult because we have to tackle industry, but we have to keep in mind affordability. We have to insulate ourselves for the import dependence, and we have to see that we stay competitive for selling our steel and aluminum. So life is very difficult, challenging. So all of us have to put in mind, all the best brains, I'm sure. Let me talk for 2-3 minutes about what I think we can do for reducing emission intensity in Indian industries. I'm not talking of emissions, I'm talking of emission intensity. If you see the carbon credit trading scheme which was brought out in June last week, it talks of targets in terms of emission intensity, not emissions. We are growing. Countries in Europe, they have targets in absolute emissions, but countries like India which are growing, we have target emission intensity. So for reducing emission intensity in India, the first and easiest path is energy efficiency. India has done wonders. Under the PAT program, Perform, Achieve and Trade, India has been able to save annually 105 million tons of carbon dioxide so far, and PAT is going forward. So that is the first low-hanging fruit, easiest. We should keep on working at it. There is a need of technology demonstration. I am very happy to share with you that we were able to set up one center called Advanced Industrial Technology Demonstration Center. You must have heard of Prerak, which will work for mostly for MSMEs. Your ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel are big companies. You can do your technology yourself, but small industries, they need to be handled. They need to be their handholding required. So that government is doing. We were also working on an interest subvention scheme for the MSMEs to support them in energy efficiency technologies which are expensive. I know that scheme will also come under consideration. Second thing, after the energy efficiency, my dear friends, is the electrification. Before we talk of carbon capture and utilization, before we talk of some very expensive technology or SMR, India is facing a lot of challenges in expanding nuclear power. If you see, we are stagnating around 7,000 megawatt. So the one thing is good that we are greening our grid. I am very sure Honorable Minister must have also spoken about it. So if we electrify our industrial processes, which we have been able to do a lot, that is the second comparatively easier than the third one, which is the toughest. I will come to that. So I think that all our industrialists, they should look at quickly electrifying their processes wherever technology is available and it is cost effective. That is the main strategy for India's energy transition. Green the grid and electrify the energy services. And let me tell you, the projections are that electricity today constitutes around 20% of the final energy consumption in India. It is going to be somewhere around 40% in 2047. So our biggest vehicle for decarbonization in industry is the electrification of energy services. A lot of things have been done. I went to an exhibition. Instead of the furnace which is used by natural gas or coal, you use electric furnace. It is so highly energy efficient because you don't need to keep it burning for whenever not using. You just press the button and use it. And its electricity by use is highly efficient as compared to other fuel. Even in transport, electric vehicle is very efficient. Its efficiency of conversion of electricity is way above 80%, 85% as compared to the ICE-based vehicles. We are expanding our renewable energy very rapidly. This electrification will be supported by DISCOMs. There are a lot of issues about DISCOMs. Because somebody was talking about a green tariff. You are talking about green tariff. So DISCOMs have to be in good shape. Otherwise, India's energy transition is on shaky foundation. We have done something I will not repeat. You must have heard me several times, RDSS and LPS and all. One small thing I will mention which is not getting a lot of attention is the fuel and power purchase cost adjustment.
Lot of states have quietly using it, raising it 25 paisa, 26 paisa, 40 paisa. So tariff stays cost reflective. It's the biggest thing. And let me mind you, one of the staunch opponent of this rule, Kerala has raised it by 10 paisa today. So every state, almost every state in the country has adopted the fuel power purchase cost adjustment. That will make DISCOMs much more viable because the tariff will stay cost reflective. We need to work with DISCOMs. We need to appreciate difficulties of the states because they are with the people. They are the democratic government. You can't ignore them. Open access is a tussle, I know, because Government of India is pushing in one direction and DISCOMs are resisting other direction. Let me tell you, the later or sooner states will give open access. There are some hiccups, some initial problems. We have capped the cross subsidy surcharge at 20 paisa of error cost of supply. And there are some other draft rules which we made in the Ministry Power which are now under formulation, where even additional surcharge is being capped and other things are also being taken care. So have some patience. It's a democracy. It will take some time. They have their difficulties, but open access is going to come. One thing more which you have not spoken here, I have not heard in the last 1 hour. When you go to seek open access, industry needs some visibility of the charges for the next 12 years. You cannot take an investment decision on a surcharge which will double next year. All your cash flow computations will go away. So in our rules, if you read the fine print, we have mentioned that for 12 years, the surcharge will not increase more than 150%. So that is the one thing which we should start talking and demanding, that whenever industry is opting for a long-term open access, like 26 gigawatt of power, you must have a visibility and certainty of the charges for next 12 years, 15 years, because otherwise it will make your investments highly uncertain and problematic. No banker will touch it. No banker will give the funds to you. So your risk will be very high. Regulatory risk will be very high. The third part. First part is energy efficiency. Second is electrification of energy services. And third is the fuel switch, which is going to be difficult. Why? We are a poor country. We have to have, keep in mind our affordability. Fuel switch will come gradually. There is difficulty. Like natural gas was talked about as a bridge fuel. But now it has a competitor of the green hydrogen. So who will invest in a new facility based on natural gas? When it's not visible whether green hydrogen will take it over in the next 7 years. So I have my conviction that natural gas is now will have a very strong competitor from the green hydrogen. And more and more facilities will come based on green hydrogen, not natural gas. Natural gas has missed the bus. It will be used in home cooking and transport, not for industries. That is my sense of things, my understanding. So partner, friends, we have to have low cost finance from developed countries if they want India's energy transition to move forward. India is being a low income country, it's going to develop. We cannot compromise our legitimate aspiration, development aspiration. They will have to give low cost finance, and they will also have to facilitate development of technology and transfer of technology. But at the same time, my humble advice to industries is, whenever you make any new investment, keep the carbon pricing in mind, because later or sooner this will come and your investment will be subjected to that risk. Because fighting climate change is a commitment of human race. India is a big country, it can't remain isolated. So later or sooner, maybe you make an investment today for 20 years. After 5 years, there are targets for your unit under the Indian carbon market, so you will have to face it. So whenever you make new investments, you have to have some indicative carbon pricing. My friends are there, I'm not an expert. What will you suggest? Around $30–40? Internal carbon pricing? That is also my sense. So around $30–40 car pricing we should factor into our investment decisions. So this was all from my side. I hope this perspective will be of some use to you. And I must thank you, FICCI, again for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very constructive views and suggestions as a way forward for the industry based on extensive experience in policy making and then yourself driving the green energy transition in the country. Thank you very much, sir. And as we conclude the session, more for summing up, I would like to request once again an expert of the sector, Shri Ganesh Srinivasan, who's the co-chair of FICCI Power Committee and the CEO of Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited.
Thank you, FICCI, for organizing this, and thank you, Alokji, for a very enlightening talk. Thank you. I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing their perspective and the audience. I think just to sum up, we spoke about the balanced perspective that Alokji spoke, the long-term low emission strategy. I think the document published by the Government of India, which takes into account the fact that India has to grow and at the same time grow responsibly and grow with sustainability. So it's not an either or, but an and there, or both. I think the other aspect that it's very clear is that this is a marathon, right? We are really talking about 2070. So close to 47 years from today. And for those who are interested in marathons, it's a 42-kilometer run, right? And I guess we are in the first 5 kilometers of that journey. So the patience and the endurance required to complete that 45 plus kilometers, which is yet to go, I think that requires both the intellectual horsepower, which is represented by industry here. The regulatory frameworks, I think Alokji and the other panelists also spoke very well about the frameworks that are already being put in place, whether it is the Green Open Access, the PAT scheme, and many other such measures which are really creating that foundation. And I really would like to second what Alokji said about health of the distribution companies. So coming from that sector, I think it is really, really important for the sector to actually have a consistent progress. Otherwise, we will have 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that risk is always there. And we see that in many countries, that kind of knee-jerk reactions can set that whole journey, and investment confidence can get shaken with that kind of approach. So it's really the constancy of regulation, the 12-year visibility, for example, and many such measures that are being put in place. Also, I would like to talk about the fact that many new ideas are being experimented, and it's a wonderful thing. The panelists spoke about thorium, helium, many experiments, carbon capture, storage. So I think it's a wonderful time to be participating in this sector in a way that is shaping the next 100 years of how the country and the world will consume energy. It's a really wonderful time to be a professional in this time. Just to end, I would like to once again thank all the panelists for their wonderful ideas. And just to take Akhil's data as the new oil, I think hopefully in next 2-3 years we'll be talking about data as the new green hydrogen and not data as the new oil. So on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, sir, for so very comprehensively connecting the dots. Thank you for that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we close this session. Once again, utmost thanks to Shri Alok Kumarji and all the distinguished speakers of this session. Thank you to all of you also. We now invite you for tea. And the next session also, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be on the 3rd floor. So tea as well as the next session on the 3rd floor. Thank you.
hello.
seated. Have our panelists. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now arrived at the pinnacle of our discussions with the panel discussion 5. I'm Manikya Kamra, the center for the day. In this fifth session, we'll delve into the strategies for achieving the ambitious goal of 100% decarbonization in energy-intensive industries. This also marks our final session for the day, and I'd also like to remind all the students present here that we will be issuing certificates, so please ensure that you have entered your correct information in the slips. We'll be collecting them shortly. Now, without further ado, please join hands in welcoming special address speaker Shri Abhay Bakri, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. We have another special address speaker, Lalit Bora, Joint Secretary of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, M. Nagraju, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal. Abhay Bakri, please make a correction. He's the Director General of Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Please join hands, everyone. We also have our session moderator, Rajneesh Sharma, partner from Deloitte, and our distinguished panelists to join us on the dais. Thank you, panelists, for joining us. We now have the official signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FICCI, and the University of Bristol, making a significant milestone in fostering collaboration within the renewable energy sector. Please join your hands and allow me to invite Arpan Gupta, Additional Director General in Mines, Metal, Cement and Energy, FICCI. We have Professor Agnes Narian, Pro Vice Chancellor, Global Engagement, University of Bristol. This marks the beginning of a collaborative endeavor in the renewable energy sector. With the purpose of promoting academic cooperation between our esteemed institutions, particularly in the RE sector, we are excited for the opportunities that lie ahead. And please, everyone, stay tuned for all the updates on this collaboration. Thank you, Professor and Arpanji. Now, I'd like to request Rajesh to please take forward.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the final session on industrial decarbonization, opportunity, challenges, and way forward. I welcome all the dignitaries, panel members, and the participants. So in the earlier session also, we heard a bit around industrial decarbonization, just adding to that conversation. So we all are aware Government of India has already taken multiple initiatives around carbon neutrality, net zero, and within that gamut, the role of industrial decarbonization is very, very critical. Now, the theme definitely is energy transition, but we all understand that India is also going through a massive economic growth, and currently we are the fifth globally in terms of GDP, and before year 2030 will be the third largest economy in the world. Now, along with that, a lot of focus is on industrial, growth, Make in India, and other initiatives we talked about. Now, with this massive growth, the increase in energy demand is going to be there, and it is expected that by year 2070, the energy demand will almost double, and the role of industrial or the contribution of industrial energy demand will be almost 60 to 65%. Now, multiple interventions like RE and other things have been happening in India, but there are certain sectors which are hard to abate. The issue, obviously, as I think in earlier session, Alok sir pointed out, around electrification of the thermal processes in general. These are the this is a segment which is very hard to crack also, as we say, or hard to abate, the way we want to define it. But this is going to be a very, very critical, and we all know that all the leading brands, industries have been working on that. Similarly, on the supplier side also, they are also looking into what kind of technology interventions can come. Now, in this industrial decarbonization journey, one good point, or the pathways which are coming up, they point out that currently in the overall energy mix, 18% is the electricity contribution. This is going to increase to up to 50% by year 2070. So the more we electrify, it's easy because we have RE, solar, wind already electrified, and then the thermal processes, how we are going to deal with that, that's another story. But for achieving the industrial decarbonization, interventions around demand side as well as supply side need. Demand side are more around energy efficiency, and any energy saved is basically less of energy generated, and also it enhances our competitiveness in industries. Now, when we talk about industries in general, one is the large industries, then the second gamut is around MSMEs. Now, we all are aware that both are slightly different in terms of their characteristics, the kind of business model, the kind of technologies, aggregation, financing, other things are quite different when we implement solutions on large industries vis-a-vis MSME. So these need to be accounted in. Similarly, as a part of this panel discussion, we'll have deliberation around both supply side, demand side related aspects. So with this, we'll start the session. Maybe first, I will request Shri Abhay Bakre ji, DG Bureau of Energy Efficiency, sir, to please share your perspective on BEE's plan, especially when we are talking about industries. BEE is already having a good database, understanding on industries, thermal processes. Maybe request you to give us a special address around that, sir. Are you here also?
Thank you, Mr. Rajneesh. Good afternoon, all of you. Sri Nagaraju, my colleague Lalit Bora, fellow panelists, officials from FICCI, industry associations, industrial champions, students who are also gathered here, and dear colleagues. Let me first compliment FICCI for organizing this India Energy Transition Summit. And I also congratulate FICCI for signing this MOU. It will also be kind of, will go a long way in shaping up our strategies in coming decade or so. So let me come back to the main today's topic, industry decarbonization, and I'll try to stick to about four or five key strategies or levers, you may say, because it's a very vast topic. But why do we really call energy transition or industry decarbonization everything? The announcement of Panchamrit, all of you are aware, I will not repeat that. But what has actually happened in last 5 years, or even say from Paris Agreement onwards? We started the strategy for our energy efficiency. And if I say how the Bureau has changed its approach, its policies, and that is basically how to actually benefit the industry and overall economy or the main sectors of the economy. till 2015, we always thought saving energy is like just now mentioned, the saving, generating the equivalent amount of energy. And we started with simple things like transformers, air conditioners, lighting, etc. But when came the Paris Agreement? And when we talk about the global south and economies which are in transition or economies which are growing, suddenly we realize, based on the data available, based on the impact of different studies, especially the impact of different programs, and in fact in a country like India, when Bureau presented these impact studies and later on also recognized by IEA, we suddenly realized that 40% of our global emission reduction, which we are all aiming toward mid-century and net zero about that, 40% can come from energy efficiency. And that's the first part of that. If we talk about the industry decarbonization and the PAT scheme, which finally exceeded the 1,000 number of units, and now you can believe that only 1,000 plus industries can actually play a significant role in shaping up industrial sector, because those 1,000 units alone are covering 55% of the industrial energy, industrial share. That's more than enough for us to actually focus on the larger industry in that. So what are the opportunities available, and that's how the session topics is. So opportunity, we have an industry sector which is consuming like almost half of the country's energy. In next 2 to 3 decades, it will continue to have almost half of the emission itself. Industry sector is also going to be the last, perhaps the last sector which will come to net zero. If we see the net zero roadmap for 2017, most of the countries, including India, the power sector will actually touch the net zero much earlier. The building sector will be the second one. The third one will be the transport sector. And the fourth sector, which will actually come close to net zero, and maybe perhaps the last 15 to 20% will still not be a net zero, and we will be using something like carbon capture or any other forms of sequestration. So industry sector will continue to be the major player in emission reduction or also emission generation. So in that regard, the role of energy efficiency, as I mentioned, some countries call it as the first fuel, because the offering or the emission reduction which is actually coming from energy efficiency has 2 clear benefits. First, the cost of energy itself is coming down, and that's the benefit to the user. The second part is it is the least cost option in most of the cases for emission reduction. So for any industry or for any sector, say if I talk about steel, if you want to reduce the emissions from steel sector, we believe that the energy efficiency will always offer the least cost. The renewable, etc., globally in different economies, whether it's a developing or developed economies, will always be 3 to 4 times higher solution or higher option in terms of cost to have the similar impact on the GHG. So that's the available. And now, what are the challenges? The challenges are always how fast we can actually move. Energy efficiency, even though it's a least cost, the deployment of options or solutions available are always coming at a higher cost. But now, a country like India and has now two options available. First thing, we have come to a stage of, and that's the Bureau has very clearly assessed, we are not at the stage where we are at the initial graph of our decarbonization. We have already come the initial part, and now we are growing with the selective technology. So here the carbon pricing or the carbon credit can also come up, and that's where now Bureau is trying to accelerate the deployment of carbon market, which can be extended to most of the potential sectors. It can invite a lot of investment within national levels or even from international sources, and also it can actually give a lot of flexibility in different sectors to mitigate climate impact, that's reducing emission by reducing the cost of these technologies. And that's now we have reached to a stage that the India can actually take levers from the carbon market. The opportunities is that we still have to grow. We are still going to have another 80 to 100% of energy requirement in coming next 2 decades. Within 1 decade or next 15 years, we are going to double our energy requirement, at least for the industry sector. So in that regard, the kind of opportunities every industry have. If I give a very simple example, if a city like Delhi has say 50 lakh air conditioners today available, if I add another 50 lakh in next 5 years, those 50 lakh will be having at least double the efficiency of the old air conditioner. Same thing is for the steel sector. If we have set up a capacity of 160 million ton per year in the country in the last 50-60 years, the next 100 million ton of capacity will be almost having half the energy consumed in next, which will be set up in next 2 decades. So that kind of opportunity is available in a country like India, and that's where the energy efficiency plays a first fuel role, coupled with the kind of options available like fuel switching, etc. And all these strategies can be further supported with the use of technology transfer, the carbon credit mechanism, the deployment of renewable, which can even lead to options like green hydrogen, green ammonia. So in that matter, I think that today's India and especially the industry sector is poised at such a advantageous position that the decarbonization will happen to the benefit of the sector, to the benefit of the country, and at the same time we can grow in a much cleaner way without traversing the paths with the other developed countries are actually followed, and we will be in a much better position to helping the planet, but at the same time allowing our aspirations and our economy to grow. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting then, and very well said. Energy efficiency is a first fuel. So with this, maybe I will request Mr. M. Nagaraju ji, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Coal, to share his perspective on decarbonization of industrial sector. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And sorry, in the morning I was supposed to come, but for something else I could not join you. Let me thank FICCI for organizing a seminar on gas energy, which is very relevant at this time of India's development. Now, I think I'll not be talking about how industry should do. What I'm going to talk about is what we are doing, Ministry of Coal we are doing, as we are one of the branded polluter of the world. So we are coal contributes about almost 50% of total electricity generated, and the country is still dependent on coal for its energy requirement. I think as per our scenarios and analysis, we continue to do so for at least 2035, around that point of time. And coal consumption will continue to grow at least 2032-34, and then stabilize for a bit of 4 to 5 years, and then may have a pace of decline. So in that situation, there are a number of reasons why we need to do that. I'm not going to, I think all of us are aware. First, of course, is the developmental requirement. We have a large human population which requires basic necessities of life. Power, go to schools, fridge, electricity, light, everything, and also the agriculture. So these are all things which we require to give a minimum standard of life to people who want to rise above the poverty level or reach middle class. So that is the imperative for the country as a development nation. Now, the coal sector also provides a lot of employment. I think perhaps Delhi may not be aware, there are regions in the country entirely dependent on the coal, especially the eastern part of the country, starting from Jharkhand, a part of Bengal, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh. The reason is there, Odisha, completely dependent on coal. Absence of coal can't be imagined in terms of economic growth and also employment. Now, we have been we are also aware, I think, of course, the world is aware that the climate change is happening, and then we are all feeling the impact, both the adverse impact, and our Prime Minister has committed net zero by 2070 and reduction by 40% 2030, and we are all working towards that. And the coal ministry also doing our own bit apart from mining the coal and sending it to the deep. Actually, mind you, let me tell you some tidbit. Coal as such is not pollutant, okay? Everybody thinks coal is a pollutant. No, coal we don't actually, when we do mining, we don't cause CO2, okay? When we only burn, then it causes. So actually, we are not responsible. We are only doing mining. And in the process, we are providing a lot of employment, revenues to the states, communities, everybody is there. So we are not actually, when people say coal is I take it very, very personally. We are not causing. We are actually, in fact, our emissions level at the mining is very, very low. We use a lot of latest technologies in the country, including pollution suppressant equipment. And if I keep visiting mines, I think, since you know. So, in fact, you see the huge tracts of very good weather conditions. Of course, wherever you have thermal power plants closely located to the coal mining areas, looks very, very dirty. But we are not responsible for that. I just wanted to clarify. Now, but you know, to continue to orbit, we are actually doing a lot of things to make mining much more environmental friendly compared to what is existing today. We are going to, by 2030, almost about 95% of the coal produced will be mechanized. What we call first mile connectivity projects means the coal will be transported to the siding, railway siding, by mechanical means. The coal will be loaded, not by the head or anything, by the silos, we call CHP silos, the rail rakes, and transported. The complete human intervention of the process of loading will be eliminated. That will actually bring down large number of trucks to transport coal from the mine to the loading. That reduces a lot of emissions. So that is one we are doing it. And the second one is, of course, when we are trying to have, presently we produce about 4% of the total coal through underground method. Underground method is much more environmental friendly, goes underground, and emissions are lesser, and we don't cut the trees, we don't destroy the topsoil. Now, therefore, presently we are 4%. By 2030, we are planning to reach at least 10%, by crossing about between 100 to 125 million tons of coal, so that better coal can be produced and lesser environmental damage and more environmental friendly. This is one second thing we are doing it. And third one is we are doing is mechanization of coal mining. If we are actually deploying large, big equipment, which West is used for so many number of years, could not do till now. Now we started last 3 years deploying these equipment, and we don't do any manpower to cut the earth now. We only mechanize completely, so that also will reduce us. And thirdly, the power we utilize for operations, we are also reducing. By 2030, we are planning to actually reach about 8,000 megawatt of solar power. We are setting up, we have already set up almost about 1,600 megawatt, and we have the plans, approved projects. So we reach about more than 8,000 megawatt by 2030, so that we will, at least our consumption will be net zero. And mind you, we are also experimenting, piloting a number of equipment on EV models. Presently, we use a diesel, but we are also, because the technology is not available for this heavy equipment, so we are also trying EV technology for coal mining operations. Then the third one, which I thought I should use this forum to inform you, is coal gasification, the coal to chemicals, what we call coal to chemicals. You know, the large number of chemicals can be produced through coal gasification. Now, we have not done much in the country, but there is only 2 private sector entities which are producing coal to chemicals. We want to expand that. For that, we have come up with the 2 things. One is to give incentive for in the revenue share of commercial coal mining. 50% we are giving. Anybody who wins the coal mine will have 50% discount on the revenue share for the amount of coal used for coal gasification. That's one we have already issued. I think large number of, say a few people have already got coal mines. The second thing we are going to do, which is now at the final decision making point, is to support both private and public sector to set up coal gasification plants. The public sector side, we are joining hands with BHEL and also GAIL to set up at least 4 gasification plants. We have identified the sites, capacities, technologies, and all those stuff. And perhaps by next year, we will have something on the ground to commence these 4 projects. One project, in fact, the tender has been, we have received, a Neyveli Lignite Corporation, Lignite to methanol project in Neyveli, that also we are doing. So this is, and then private sector we are keeping. We are actually keeping about 6,000 crores for this, incentivizing the fiscal incentives to make the projects viable, fiscally viable, to take up in the country. Our goal is that we will, by 2030, in fact, has been announced by Honorable Prime Minister, by 2030 we will have a gasification of 100 million ton. But I think may not be able to achieve, but we will be on target to achieve by a little later than 2030. Now, the fourth point I wanted to mention to you is, and while I accept and we all acknowledge that mining is a very not very fancy thing nowadays, but we also do a lot of plantation. In fact, last 3 years we have done tremendous plantation. Millions of plants we have planted, and we have a mission to whatever coal mine we close, we use that land for plantation. And we have done a lot of studies. The amount of plantations we have done is more than triple of the plants we have cut down. So at least not now, but at least a few years down the line, we'll be creating huge carbon sink in the countryside. And you know, the other thing which we are doing, in the past, coal mines were not closed properly. If you go, I think some of you may be from eastern part of the country. If you have seen that, you realize it how poorly we have done on that front. We are not actually closed down these mines properly as per the standards. Now we have actually set the standards. Good standards we have issued last year. How a coal mine needs to be closed. What are the parameters to be monitored? What are the mitigation measures to be taken so that to ensure that the livelihoods are protected, the people's health is protected, and environment is also conserved. Now, we are also taking support of the World Bank because World Bank has a lot of experience in closing mines in both Poland and also in Germany. So we are taking their help in increase our own capacity in the coal sector so that we will be doing a better job. In the process, we also wanted to ensure that livelihoods of the people who were dependent on the coal mining in the past are protected, and they have alternative livelihoods. Now, this is a very long-term thing, but this is what we need as a country as a whole we need to do, because coal mining we continue to operate. Presently, we have, I think everybody knows, last year we produced more than 1 billion, and this year we'll touch 1.2 billion, and we'll be reaching by 2030 anywhere between 1.7 to 1.8 million tons of coal, because we are a huge country, and we have so much the power sector, cement sector, aluminum, everybody uses coal for their business. So while we are doing this, whatever we are doing in the mining, but we are also responsible, we are also contributing, we are also wanted to contribute to the decarbonization of the sector, and our support will be there. to the entire industry. In fact, we are also encouraging the steel industry to take up steel making through DRI route. We wanted to come out with a incentive structure to the private sector. But a couple of guys are doing now. We wanted it to large scale because steel making is one of the big business of India and the entire world. We produce a lot of steel for many countries. In fact, we export our steel. That is one thing where there is an opportunity to decarbonize thing. Now, in the lastly, I think I wanted to thank FICCI for giving me the chance to speak and make some remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the initiatives taken by Ministry of Coal, especially adoption of EV, clean coal, and mechanization of the coal mining process. With this, I will move to the next speaker, Shri Lalit Bohra ji, Joint Secretary, MNRE. I will request sir to highlight the initiatives taken by MNRE, the focus area, especially from the context of industrial decarbonization.
Thank you, Rajneesh ji, and Shri Abhay Bhakre ji, Nagarjun ji, other colleague on the dais, and the partners from the industries. First of all, I thank you, FICCI, for organizing this event and giving us an opportunity to be part of this. As we all know, my previous speaker has also said that the industry sector is the one which is consuming about 50% of the energy. And energy transition, our Honorable Prime Minister has already said in the COP26 that by 2070 we will be net zero, and the process for reaching there is what is an energy transition. And if I put it very simple, the strategy is that to electrify as much energy as we can. After electrifications, those electricity should be as much from the renewable as it can be. And if it is not possible in the sector like hard to abate and etc., then we go for a green hydrogen or green ammonia. So this is what is an energy transition all about. We are a country which is growing fast, and we are growing very fast, which has been acknowledged at the international level. So we cannot have our energy transition in a way that it affects the industrial growth. We cannot have an energy transition where we increase the rate of electricity, the rate of input, and then ask that we go for an industrial energy transition. And fortunately for India, we are blessed with the RE resources. We have one of the best RE radiations. We have a huge coastline where we can have a wind generation. We have a sources where we can put the pumped hydros or the hydro plants. And with all these things, we are quite optimistic that this transition is possible. And ministry, especially the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, has been working in this area. So far as we have, India has a capacity of about more than 182 gigawatt of renewable. We made a plan to achieve 500 gigawatt by 2030, and to achieve that, the ministry has already issued the bidding trajectory of about 50 gigawatt of renewable bids by the renewable energy implementing agencies, which is mainly the SECI, NTPC, NHPC and the SJVN. So they will be issuing 50 gigawatt of bidding every year. And this was done just to give an indication to the industry that they can arrange their finance. The financial institutions are ready for this. And a process in that direction is already initiated. We have been seeing a regular bids by all these 4 REIAs. And it's quite good that these bids are being oversubscribed. So that means that there are players who are ready to put the RE plant, and the industry is always there to consume that. Now the issue remains is that the RE has to be available and it should be affordable. If it is not available, then the industry cannot get it, and if it is not affordable, then it will increase the cost of the industry and they will become uncompetitive. So as far as the availability is concerned, the ministry along with the Ministry of Power has been coming out with various instruments. One of them was this bidding trajectory which we issued. We have come out with the green open access rule, where we have given an opportunity the industries which does not have the space, which does not have the enough know-hows, they can procure the power through green open access. The captive power plant rule is also there, where a lot of C&I consumers are coming up and they are putting up their plant. So all these ecosystems has been created so that the industry moves in that direction. And in order to ensure that we have energy security and industry is more or less assured of their input cost, the government went for a 24,000 crore of PLI for solar module manufacturing. And it was not just the module manufacturing, it was the entire supply chain, starting from the manufacturing of polysilicon to wafer, ingot and cell, and then the module, so that we have a control on our own cost. We have seen in the past few years that due to the COVID and subsequent development, the cost of modules have fluctuated, and so the cost of electricity. But with this, and I'm really thankful to the Indian industries that they come out with wholehearted in these PLIs, and we are sure that by 2026 India will be having a capacity of 100 gigawatt of module manufacturing, and out of which more than 60 will be the cell manufacturing. We will be having the polysilicon manufacturing, ingot wafer manufacturing, and therefore more or less an entire control over the supply chain. And with this, it will be easier for the industry to predict that at what cost they are going to get their electricity. Along with that, the ministry has been working to see that whatever the problems which industries are facing are being handled at a regular interval. So ministry has a mechanism where we do conduct a monthly meeting, and they are very religious kind of a meeting. It's not that it doesn't happen in a month. It happens every month, where we discuss the issue threadbare to understand the problems of the industry and how that can be resolved. So with these things and the green hydrogen, I think my colleague Ajay was here yesterday, and he must have spoken about this. We have already launched the green hydrogen mission, and we are expecting that we will be having the 5 metric million ton of green hydrogen production. Although like in last few discussions and meetings, we found that 5 million metric ton is a very conservative estimate, and the industry is quite optimistic, and we may end up with having more and more green hydrogen and green ammonia coming up. So with these things, I'm quite optimistic that the decarbonization of the industrial sector will be a very smooth process. I have been in touch with few industries where they have been trying to, as Abhay Bhakreji has already said, that energy efficiency is very important, and industries certainly they must be doing it, and if they are not, so I will appeal to them to work on the energy efficiency part, because that is also very important, and wherever we can reduce the dependence on the fossil fuels, we should do, and then only we will be able to achieve our target. With this, I thank you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your perspective, especially emphasizing that achieving decarbonization is quite feasible. So with this, we'll try to get some perspective from the industry side also, developers as well as maybe I will request Colonel Harmeet Singh Sethi maybe to just share his perspective, especially the initiatives and what kind of intervention they expect.
Thank you very much. Take this opportunity, and I think everybody has spoken on the part that how hard to abate cement sector, and very clearly let us understand quickly as to why cement something we should be thinking about and we should be working on environment, how to decarbonize it. So, like Nagaraju ji said that we are a huge country and the challenges is very clearly listed. Let me put this in perspective that it also, everybody in this room and outside uses it. It is also the cheapest material available in this country at 6 to 9 rupees depending on where you buy it. And whatever you see constructed in the country today, I mean, just take your mind back to Bombay, Delhi, whatever you see constructed. In 20 years, this much more will be constructed. And look at the other perspective. And just because these countries have been in this, Canada has a population of 38 million. And if you put 3 people in a house, it's got 12 million houses. India has a population of 1440. If you put 5 people in a house, we've got 300 million houses. I've been told by the Joint Secretary that there are 296 million electricity connections. I mean, just look at the mammoth task that we have in front of us. So what are we trying to do? I mean, that is the challenge which we have, because everybody will use cement. So we have to very clearly ensure that whatever cement we use today and hereafter, whether the government, whether the private sector, anybody has to use green cement. Now that is where the trick lies, and that is where everybody in every regulatory body, in every house has to start thinking about it. And it is our responsibility as cement manufacturers to give this country green cement, whether large, small, medium. I mean, I'm from Dalmia, we're the 4th largest, but I can assure you that the cement industry, I may bring out some parameters which we are doing in our company, but the cement sector in general is following these guidelines, and I'm proud to say that cement sector in India is possibly producing the greenest cement in the entire world. My plants, and I say with a lot of responsibility, is producing the greenest cement in the world. I'm not, and this is documented. Let me tell you what we are doing about it, because we took up the challenge about 10 years back, and we've been moving about it. There are 4 or 5 things which I'm saying we are doing, but it's the cement industry which circular economy, 100% low carbon cement, 100% low carbon cement will be made available from 26 onwards. We have already reached a large percentage even now. Energy productivity, you heard about this, doubling of energy productivity by 2030. Renewable electricity, use of 100% renewable electricity power under fossil free 2030. We are part of the RE mission 100. By 2030, we will be not using renewable, we'll be using fossil free. Thermal energy, we intend not to use any coal post 2035. That is the challenge that we take. Electric vehicles, I know these are smaller, but the carbon sinks and carbon sequestration and the CCU technologies. Also, to put in perspective the last part, just to give you the confidence, there are 2 parts of it. 1, the importance, the second, what we are doing, and third, what we have done. And that is where I think we are on the track of achieving what the Honorable Prime Minister has conveyed and listed for us. So we are as Dalmia Bharat, and I'm sure other cement companies also. I've got my targets. I can share them with you. That as per the SBTi, that is scientific targets, which are approved targets. Scope 1 is that direct. GHG emissions, 32% ton of cementitious material by financial year 2034 with the base year 2019. We have already achieved 16% reduction in scope 1, achieved against the 219 SBTi baseline, already achieved. In the scope 2 GHG emissions, which is indirect emissions, we've already, which we are supposed to reduce 61.9%. We have, by the year 2034, we have already achieved 17% reduction in scope 2 against 2019 SBTi baseline. So this is our efforts, this is what we are doing, and this is the scope which is happy to participate. I think there's people on the panel, we have people here whom we are partnering and making this possible for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the green cement aspect. Now, we'll move to the aluminium side. I will request Shri Pankaj Jain, Vice President, Power Utility in Hindalco Industries. Maybe a specific question. What kind of low carbon technologies you are adopting and how it fits in your business model from the cost element?
So, we have heard from different industries. First of all, good afternoon to all. Aluminum and copper, these are the two important metals which Hindalco manufactures. These are the important part for all whatever we are discussing, because the transmission of power, transformer, the motor, the electrifying of the country depends on copper and aluminum. We are in this process of making. So we have also targeted, as per the government notifying, of 2050 for net zero. Our targets are by 2030 we are planning to reduce by 30%, and for that we are also gone for the traditional one, renewable power, hybrid plants, pump storage, CNG firing, reduction of coal-based processes, improving energy efficiency. These are all the couple of initiatives which we have taken. But seeing at your question of costing and all this, these all are okay, but we need RTC power because aluminum manufacturing is such a complex power where we need RTC power. Hindrance of around 2 to 3 hours can cause the damage completely. So we are dependent largely on our own coal-based power plant. So only 20 to 30% we can get it from the grid. For that also we need a strong grid. If the grid fails, we are in deep trouble. For that also we are shifting to higher kV, 400 kV and plus, that the grid stability is maintained. So for getting more pump storage and getting the benefit of green access and the ISTS power waiver, we are shifting to higher kV lines too. But for the longer period, our plan is to have CCU capture. We are planning to have a pilot project for us. And also we seek support from government in the cost of storage as well as the hydrogen technology, so that the longer term RTC power can be available and can be cost.
Thank you, sir, for keeping it brief and very specific, and you raised the issue on RTC specifically. Maybe I'll request Shri Prakash Rai, already have a Shri, Chief Revenue Officer, AMPIN. So you work a lot in C&I sector. Now, we have already seen RTC and other things for utility scale models. Now, for C&I specifically, how do we see the model going? What kind of ticket size are coming and challenges, right? When we talk about industries, the scale varies a lot from small 1 megawatt to say 3 megawatt, or players like Hindalco, where higher capacity is there, especially the availability part he highlighted. They need assured power. Any tripping will have a major impact on their production.
Hello. Type of demand usually comes from we have major industry segment present here, metals. Now from our 24/7. The important point is for any C&I consumer, what they want is
maximum replacement of conventional power through. So usually if you see RTC as of now, the practicality point of view, it is mainly wind and solar. What we are actually IPP catering to the C&I consumers is actually overloading wind. That's the specific, because it makes commercial sense. Because for any consumer to adopt RTC, it is important it should wind and solar. It is people have signed the power delivery. But obviously there is some portion, because as you increase, if you will see around 30-35% of power is not being consumed because of that time block. So then again, that's the second challenge is what you do that 30-35%. So either you identify a new customer who is ready to take 35% of that additional power with a lower CUF, or you start selling. Okay, now the third question is, if at all you have started selling it in exchange, there is a regulatory whether the consumer will be able to consume 50 captive. If in case there are any shutdowns and all, there is a likelihood you might actually shift to you might be in danger of losing captive. That is also one of the important aspect. So the most important point here is whether we can use battery storage or pump hydro. So what Pankaj ji has mentioned here, pump hydro has come up as one of the solar and pump hydro, which can be a reliable source. But yeah, it's a lot of discussions we have seen, but we still need to see one of the first plant coming in, start delivering power to see been signed, but we are still waiting for transactions to happen. So as of now, the most prevalent thing is wind solar with a higher QA, and that too that too with a lot of scheduling that we need to do. We are still waiting. Maybe another 6 months time we'll see first up in the and actually see whether we are able to schedule power depending upon the. So yeah, there is a lot of interest, lot of keenness from the C&I consumer, because the ultimate point what they want is the maximum replacement of their power through, because it makes commercial sense, first thing, and it also in line with the sustainability pledge which they have signed. So I don't see any dearth in inquiries. Every day or every second day we get a lot of inquiries. Starts from as low as a 10 megawatt customer to as high as a 50. But we still need to see the practicality of it, which.
Thank you, but it's good to hear that there is an interest in the market, and hopefully we'll have a plant ready and the market established. Maybe adding to that, I will request Karthikeya Sharma ji, co-founder Sunsure Energy, to add on this the role of policy and regulatory, right? We are talking about RTC, the role of power market, especially policy regulation. What's your expectation, like especially C&I would like to have some innovative models. They need to keep the availability and affordability part both in check. So your perspective.
Thank you, Rajneesh. And I think this question is coming to me on a series of very serious insights into what is really shaping the C&I sector's renewable energy demand today. Starting all the way from the fact that we are a growing economy, right? And as we grow, what we are finding is that the new technologies are hard to abate sectors, which are cement, steel, chemicals, right, refining and fertilizers and chemicals. All of these sectors, as they grow and they deploy more and more capacity, we are seeing that capacity is more efficient. And as far as all of these corporations who are setting up these capacities are concerned, there is not just interest today, there is very serious intent. And we see that, in the representation at the panel today, Sethi sir from Dalmia Cement, Mr. Jain from Hindalco, these are industries, or these are, flag bearer corporations for these hard to abate sectors in terms of the kind of renewable energy initiatives they have taken. And we've been in the sector for the last 10 years now, and what is most palpable today in 2023 is the sheer scale of demand which is now coming from these industries. So we used to deal with 500 kilowatt, maybe 1 megawatt kind of demand in CNI all the way up till 2018, which is when open access opened up in Karnataka. And when that opened up, it was the first time that people were signing 10 megawatt PPAs, or people were setting up 20, 30 megawatt capacities. In just a period of 5 years, the average demand that is coming in today, for top 5 or 10 large developers like ourselves in the industries, we see the average demand has gone up from 2-3 megawatts to 25-30 megawatts. And markets such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat with their solar wind hybrid policy, even a state like UP, and I come from UP, and I'm very proud to say that UP today boasts of one of the most progressive open access policies in the country, and is seeing a deployment which is which far outpaces what we saw in places like Haryana or Rajasthan when they opened up for open access. So one big change that has now happened is that for the last 5 years we've been primarily dealing with intrastate solar, and there have been changes, there have been challenges that have come in the intrastate policies. The APTEL has been very, very active. Even Supreme Court has been very active in taking away a lot of issues from the CNI sector. But in the last 2 years, with GOAR coming in, with GNA coming in, with the ISTS network becoming a reality for CNI, these three things together are today giving a momentum to the industry which we had never imagined 10 years ago. And same goes for the industry and for developers like ourselves. So today I find, and I was discussing this with Joint Secretary Sir also, that today we are also very uniquely placed in terms of policies, where we have a lot of forward-looking policies like GOAR, GNA in place. And now over the next year or 18 months, if we can just work on making sure that these are implemented in their best spirit amongst these strong markets, and not just the strong markets, we know that Maharashtra, industries operating in Maharashtra have had the advantage of getting green energy. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, all of these. But states which were mentioned by Honorable Nagaraju sir, the Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, the eastern Madhya Pradesh, these regions which are home to a lot of these hard to abate sectors will also get to start seeing penetration of energy with policies coming into the fore, and that for me is the most exciting thing that is happening in the sector, and which needs very prudent policy support.
Thank you, Karthike, for highlighting that. So maybe we'll move to the next speaker, Shri Vikas Singh. You work a lot with the industrial consumers, tech solutions and other things. So heard around, RTC, government perspective, industrial user. What's your view? I mean, how it is moving? What kind of focus is there? How long it will take?
Thank you very much. So respected panelists on the dais, I kind of bring a slightly different perspective to the whole, deliberation that has been taking place over last 2 days over here. So first of all, agreeing to Sri Nagaraju, Additional Secretary Sir, yesterday when the Minister was here, sir, I mean, he was very candid in accepting that yes, energy transition, energy related matters are of important to us, but for a country like India, development, it can't come at the cost of development. I mean, that's something which we have been very candid, open in the G20 declarations and everything. So that part, sir, will continue. We've also seen, the kind of proactive policies that Ministry of MNRE has been now, kind of handholding the industry. Bureau of Energy Efficiency has had a role to play. But the perspective that I am bringing in over here is slightly taking away from the whole, core question of decarbonization or energy transition. I mean, since there are many students over here, I'll take the liberty of actually, just revisiting the whole thing, that if you look at humanity and development that human race has been, there has been, technology has always played a very important role whenever those landmarks has been achieved by humanity, whether it was discovery of wheel or the industrial steam and industrial revolution. So same thing we are now witnessing today. And today's development is heavily dependent on technology. As SAP, what we bring in is that today's technological development is again very heavily dependent on digital side of things that are coming in. And that's the perspective that I would briefly want to touch upon today. So what we are seeing today is that, sustainability is no longer something which is looked at as a charity or as a, imperative choice or anything. I mean, our perspective is that sustainability today makes a lot of business sense. So the whole goal today should be ensure how do we make sustainability profitable and make profitability sustainable. So that should be the core theme that we are looking at it. We are also witnessing as a world, that there are increasing expectations and pressures from stakeholders, on carbon footprints and everything. So it's not just about a cement manufacturer or a steel or an aluminum manufacturer. As youngsters today, people have become very conscious as to what they are purchasing, what they are using and everything. So sustainability now has become almost an integral part of our day-to-day decision-making process. Having said that, I mean, from a digital perspective, what do you do? So while we talk about reducing, emission reductions, decarbonization, energy transition, digital, in my opinion, has a very strong role to play, especially from that delta element. So while the larger picture has already been talked about by the distinguished panelists here, what digital essentially does is that it actually captures, data from various parts of your processes. Now, whether it's a manufacturing process, whether it's a logistics or supply chain processes, whether it's your packaging, whether it's your, so at every point data is being generated, and companies like SAP and our ERP is actually capturing that data. So what you're getting in the net process is that you're accessing a new data, you're collecting that data, you are actually evaluating that data through advanced data processing processes, and you're optimizing an intelligent enterprise approach to start acting on that data to make about the changes. So, I mean, the perspective that I want to bring on the table is how, carbon accounting today across the value chain is the need of the hour. So that's the process that I was just trying to bring in. And within that part also, now we have gone a step forward. So all new things or the buzzwords in technology that you talk about, whether it's AI, whether it is, so typically, I mean, I'll just take some few moments to give you an example. So, I mean, now ERP systems are coming up with something called an inbuilt green ledger. So apart from your financial accounting, or apart from your process accounting, it is also capturing data and throwing to you insights as to where your carbon footprints are lying and how you can, once you get that data, you can start acting upon them. So it ranges right from your purchase decisions, your inventory management, your process decisions, your logistics, your reporting, everything is now being captured and helping you to take those correct decisions. Going forward, Joint Secretary Sir talked about green hydrogen. I mean, it's not part of today's discussion, but something that I'm going to be actually talking to him later on is that as the whole, the debate and the discussion about carbon footprint, data reporting and reporting your footprint will come into place, rest assured, human ingenuity, there will be a lot of fraud also that will happen. And in order to track that fraud, in order to ensure that the carbon markets operate at a certain level of ethics, in order to ensure that what you are tomorrow exporting as green hydrogen is actually green hydrogen, this particular data will come very handy. So those are a few of my initial thoughts.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting the role of data as well, specifically. So, moving to the last panel members. So, India, obviously, we have taken the lead in digital transformation and other thing, and we heard around a green ledger and other things. Now, carbon market is something everyone is interested on. We saw RECs, then we had IREX also. So, moving to the carbon market, a lot of changes are expected. Specific question, I mean, Digital Hub, we are already there. I mean, we are the leaders. Can we become the leaders in carbon market, specifically catering to the global need? And what's your perspective, how it can help industries also get into the game?
Thank you. So I was listening to the respective panel members. So first of all, I would like to congratulate industry because Indian industry has already taken lead for decarbonization and achieving target. As per our knowledge that Wipro, SW, Adani Group, Reliance has already done the commitment that till or before 2050 they are going to. So industry has to follow just simple 5 steps to get the decarbonization. Step 1 is of course about the climate risk understanding and impact baselining. What are the business challenges that can happen in the coming years? The industry need to. So those analysis and baseline is really important, right? Each and every industry, because there is a lot of carbon tax and the carbon tax on the world is going to happen and is going to start very soon. Second is that what is the net zero strategy development which we need to do? We need to analyze by sustainable development planning or sustainable financing activities, stand financials accordingly. Third is that organizational transformations is really required. So when we will create the model about net zero, we need to do complete activity inside the organization and strategy need to align to implement at the grassroots level. And fourth is regarding the transparency and assurance and reporting, like we discuss about digital carbon calculator, discuss about carbon accounting. Also, we discuss about digital dashboard, which we can us to know what is the scope 1, 2 emissions are there, which plant, which factory, which product and services, some emissions, that it can be corrective action can. And finally, this is the most important task which we need to communicate the internal and external stakeholders. It will really going to build a great imagery and build an image. So that is the 5 steps we would like to communicate. And apart from that, there are various opportunities which India has availing as a carbon market. So there are 2 kinds of carbon market. One is of course a compliance-based carbon market, which carbon market is launching or the mitigation and help to achieve our NDC target. I would like to cover the second market, which is about the voluntary carbon market. So India as per se has a 30% share in the voluntary carbon market right now. And by 2050, we are expecting that $250 billion market is going. And if we have a 30% share, we're expecting that $75 billion might come for FDI. So voluntary carbon market can play a very important role, and there are various products and services where voluntary carbon market can credit. And incentivizing industry to fight against decarbonization and achieving net zero goal parameters. Like there is a renewable energy sector, we all know that there's solar, wind, hydro, biofuel. Biogas and CBG is a great area, which we already announced in the Article 6.2. The 13 technology, this is one of the sectors is going to get. And these projects are also meeting large SDG goals like CBGM. So high quality carbon credit that can generate and get a lot of incentive for the country. Second is that energy efficiency we have discussed in large and depth. Nature-based solution, like Abhay sir said, that it is in the last stage for NDC target. So there is a great opportunity which we have like forestry projects and also mangrove plantations and sustainable land management. So all those activities are able to generate high finance. And community-based projects is again a big area where CMAI in its member is already working 2 million households in India for clean cooking and generating high quality carbon credits. And these carbon credits are meeting 8 to 9 SDG goals. And finally, the waste management projects, we are already working with a lot of smart city, municipal solid waste, and also organic waste and compost. So these are opportunities which we are right now availing. And I think all those opportunities which every industry can avail, like Sir rightly said about the coal industry decarbonization plan. And in the coal industry, what are the green action has been taken by coal industry? All those projects like mining or environmental friendly way, like plantations coal industry is doing, like coal gasification projects are happening, the coal renewable projects are happening. All these projects can generate carbon credit and help to incentivize coal industry.
Thanks a lot, Rohit ji. So with this, we'll try to conclude briefly. So it was an interesting discussion we heard from the energy efficiency perspective, RE and others. Industrial decarbonization is challenging, but it has its own sets of opportunity, and definitely in India we can do a lot of innovative projects and implement those at scale, which can be replicated in other geographies. I would like to thank all the dignitaries for sharing their perspective, panel members, and request everyone to please give a round of applause to all of them for sharing their perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for enlightening us through a session on clean energy adoption by the industry. I request you to please step forward and provide green certificate to Shri Abhi Bhakre ji. Please provide the certificate to Shri Lalit Bohra ji. Lastly, please provide it to M. Nagaraju ji. A big round of applause, everyone. I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists for indulging in rich discussions. I'd like to announce everyone, we have a knowledge draw very shortly. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, esteemed speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I now request Anish Mandal, partner Deloitte, to sum up the two-day Energy Transition Summit in his kind words. Please join hands in welcoming Anish Mandal, partner Deloitte.
Right. Thank you. Very good afternoon. Thank you for being here for the last 2 days. I'm hoping that absolutely insightful, as insightful as kind of I got a sense of a whole lot of questions I could learn from. So I'm hoping that equally I think insightful and as well as engaging the sessions have been. To sum up from the initial session where we had our esteemed and as well as honorable panel chaired by Honorable Minister. So what we learned from that session, or to sum it up, was what we all know, that there is an accelerated renewable addition which is required for the energy transition. Now, energy transition, we all know, are broadly defined under 3 pillars, which is of course the grid decarbonization, your industrial decarbonization, and as well as transport transition. Now, in all of that, I think the common thread is renewables, and renewables probably in a round-the-clock basis. So therefore, there was a lot of stress around adding renewables in a much more accelerated way, and some numbers were also put, like 50 gigawatt every year for the next almost like 50 years what we require, and that's the minimum to transit almost to 100% decarbonized grid itself, right? So therefore, to do that, the historic additions of 20 gigawatt, what we have done, that needs to be significantly scaled up, and therefore both government, central government, state government, SECI, all the agencies, and as well as the private investment financiers needs to be rolling up their sleeves, and as well as kind of all put their efforts behind this. So that's one conclusion we surely had. Second conclusion, of course, and that's to be proudly, we are all proud of that. I think Honorable Minister also stressed that India is leading the way in terms of what energy transition is. So therefore, from that perspective, as a country, we have significantly achieved the 500 gigawatt target. What we have is the largest target. We are I think only the foremost country in terms of the highest growth in renewable addition. So all that is, of course, a very positive sense. But he also stressed that energy security is one more important aspect, and that's what we should all be aware of. Therefore, the first and foremost kind of I would say milestone for India would be the growth. So keeping growth as the primary mover, we would see that energy security and as well as energy transition be addressed. So from that perspective, there was also a consideration around whether to keep coal plants alive or not, and there was a conclusion that unless and until long duration storages and as well as renewables are significantly kind of there in the grid and the grid runs efficiently, till then we'll have coal. So these are some of the suggestions and as well as conclusions what we had. Yeah, I think then we, of course, in the second panel on the international collaboration, of course, there were couple of points discussed, more from the perspective of how EU and India, how US and India could collaborate and as well as learn from each other, both in terms of technologies and as well as creation of certain I would say aspects, in the sense like hydrogen hubs, hydrogen valleys, and all those which we are currently hearing about terms they have already successfully implemented or by some of these countries. So therefore, we'll borrow from them. There are technologies around offshore wind, which I think country of Norway and as well as Belgium highlighted. So we'll borrow from them those technologies, and as well as those players, and I would say the state players are already present in India. So we could borrow from them. There was a panel discussion which was I was fortunate to kind of moderate that. That was on green hydrogen, and then there was a discussion around how the costs could come down, how there are several innovations around happening around indigenous manufacturing of type 2 and type 3 storage tanks. There are standards and regulations which are being drafted around pipelines, and we also heard from pipeline infra that they're also eagerly looking forward to kind of looking at how the entire transportation landscape can be altered in the country. The third panel, which was some around energy transition, again chaired by Sri Ghanshyam Prasad ji, and over there also I think we heard a pretty strong message around that coal is definitely not going away in the near future unless and until we have a significant viable solution around that. Land, of course, there was a lot of stress around that energy transition can't happen without the support of the states, and therefore what happened or what's happening in the states is, of course, there is a lot of support given so far in adding renewables, but however what we need to focus is around land acquisition, because there to achieve energy transition will require thousands of gigawatts of solar, wind, pump storages, and as well as hydro, in the sense of full potential of 170, 160 gigawatt, and as well as renewables. So unless and until we have full support from states in terms of land acquisition, in terms of state evacuation, transmission planning, and all that, that's not going to happen. The third is, of course, there were a lot of enablers which pointed out by Honorable Minister as well, that open access rules have been kind of modified, and as well as RPO, they're also thinking bring under certain rules so that the monitoring and enforcement is much more robust, and distribution also now are no longer unviable, quote unquote, but they are much more efficient. I think every incentive from the center has been kind of linked to a particular loss reduction. For a pretty viable and bright future. Now, in the fourth panel on the best practices by various states and investments, I think the railways, Indian Railways also highlighted that they have already announced their net zero and they're going towards very strongly towards that. We all see that. I think the railways are targeting to kind of procure the entire electricity from renewables. Today's sessions also, of course, talked about industrial decarbonization. That's also necessary for a 30% energy reduction in terms of decarbonization. So energy efficiency and electrification are, of course, the lowest hanging fruit. But however, that alone will not be sufficient, and therefore there is need for green hydrogen, CCUS, biofuel, and that's not going to happen unless and until there are some decisive policy actions as funding support from government. There was lastly, of course, a lot of focus around carbon markets, and Sri Alok Kumarji also pointed out that it's not far that probably industry will see some kind of a carbon pricing. Therefore, we should be readying ourselves to face that and accordingly kind of evaluate other alternative technologies and the fossil fuel. So hopefully, I think that sums it up in all. And thank you so much, FICCI, for organizing this summit the last 1.5 days, and we all have been learning. And as we say that if we stop learning, we are all become old, and therefore we keep learning to stay young. And with that, I'll conclude my summing up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mandal, for those wise words. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We now have a lucky draw commencing right after we have a vote of thanks by Arpan Gupta, Additional Director, Mines, Metals, Cement and Energy. He leads the renewable energy sector at FICCI. Please give him a round of applause, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I know I am sending you between you and the lunch and the knowledge draw. Rather, I should not waste time saying that I am standing between you and the lunch. A pleasure to share the journey of India Energy Transition Summit 2023 with you. All the dignitaries that have been there with us for these 2 days, the speakers in the inaugural session and the technical sessions thereafter, the ministers in the morning, secretaries, panelists, esteemed participants, colleagues, industry members and friends. On behalf of FICCI, I convey my sincere thanks to one and all for participating in this event and making it a great success. This is the entire team of FICCI, government stakeholders, our knowledge partner Deloitte, our members, mentors, chairs, moderators and the industry who have worked hard for the success of these 2 days of program. To share, this is a landmark event in the history of Indian energy sector, not only because it has brought all the stakeholders at one platform, but also from the perspective of information and knowledge sharing that has happened over the last 2 days. We had more than 400 participants from the program across 2 days. From the previous edition in 2022, it was a one-day edition. We have not only scaled in terms of the number of participants and speakers, but have also added many new features and aspects to the program, including sessions on green hydrogen, state-specific opportunities and international collaborations, and also the MOU that we signed today. During these 2 days, we had heard the dignitaries from central government, PSU, state government, industry and consultants on a wide range of topics of interest of us. The sessions were crafted, discussions planned considering the current and future needs of the industry, especially under the targets envisaged under Panchamrit statement of the Honorable Prime Minister. I would like to mention one thing particularly. There were a lot of speaker requests that we received over the last 2 months and especially the last month. While we were able to accommodate many of them, we had to push few for the next edition. Also convey my sincere thanks and regards to the Ministry of Power, Ministry of Steel, Ministry of Coal, Niti Aayog and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. I acknowledge the support of speakers who have not only confirmed their participation but have also kept their commitment to join us for these 2 days. It was only one particular speaker who have dropped from the 60 plus speakers among these 2 days. The speakers along with our esteemed participants have deliberated on a energy transition and user adoption of RE, charting out its growth path and vision. All these highlighted actionable suggestions would be incorporated in a post-event report which would be taken to the concerned levels for further consideration. We had an amazing audience for the summit with lots of enthusiasm for discussions and deliberations. So many thanks to all of you. I would also like to thank our sponsors for supporting the event, without whom it would not have been possible to organize this event of this magnitude. A special mention for our media friends who are the public face for the initiatives we undertake. Mention for our knowledge partner Deloitte for their continuous support and building this program. I would also like to thank our anchors for putting a lot of energy and enthusiasm into the conference. I once again thank you all for joining us and making this program achieve the desired objectives. And many thanks to anyone I might have missed out. Also via this platform, lastly, I would like to announce that since this is an annual platform, we would be having the next edition in 2024, and we look forward to meeting you all for India Energy Transition Summit 2024 in September, October next year, and for our further initiatives during the course of next 12 months. So thank you everyone. I would now request our anchor Manikya to have the knowledge draw, please.
We will be having 4 knowledge draws today, so I hope you have duly filled your slips and given them to the ushers. We have our first winner, Gajendra Singh Negi. Please give him a big round of applause. Our second winner is Dhirendra Dubey. Dhirendra Dubey, Renew Power India Limited. If we have Gajendra Singh Negi, can we have Dhirendra Dubey on the dais? Okay. Our third winner is Jyoti Mishra. Congratulations, Jyoti. Last winner for the day is Upasana Bhati, a student, and I'm very honored to say we also have students joining us in these energy transition summits. Upasana Bhati. We're proud to have you here, Upasana. Since one winner missed out, we have another, and that brings another possibility for the audience to even win. Sushil Kumar Mittal. Do we have Sushil Kumar Mittal ji? Yes. Congratulations, sir. That sums up the knowledge draw. I'd like to thank all the participants for their active participation. We have lunch prepared for you. Please proceed towards the lunch arrangement. And thank you so much. Please take care of your belongings, everyone.